Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Back in the old country, back in the days of our great-great-grandparents, the word America was almost magical. It would conjure up notions of a fantastic land filled with riches of every kind and opportunities denied in the countries of their birth. If they were of Ashkenazic persuasion, then chances are that rather than calling it America, they would refer to this country as the Golden Medina, the Golden Land, a place so rich that the streets were literally paved with gold. But when our ancestors arrived to this country, they found that it was not so. Many ended up working in sweatshops under grueling, inhuman conditions, or as peddlers in far-flung rural places, literally carrying large sacks of wares on their backs. And while our ancestors discovered that the streets of America were not paved with gold, that it didn't mean that America was not a golden Medina. What they discovered that made America so special, what made this country truly golden, were the inspired words of the First Amendment of the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. The United States of America was the first nation in history to build its society on the foundation of the separation between church and state. The First Amendment of the Constitution is the cornerstone of American religious freedom, ensuring the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause that the government does not support religious practices, does not favor one religion over another, and does not unnecessarily interfere with the private practices of religion. So powerful is the unique and diverse ways in which its people practiced it. Separation of church and state is not only a moral issue, but a practical, legal, and political one. And when church and state are mixed, it harms them both. When the government imposes on religion, religion loses the independence guaranteed to it by the Constitution. No people in this country have a better appreciation of this lesson or the blessing of the First Amendment than the Jewish people. And much of the credit for the writing of this Constitution goes to James Madison, who wrote in regards to the separation of church and state, "Who does not see that the same authority which can establish Christianity in the exclusion of all other religions may establish with the same ease any particular sect of Christians in exclusion of all other sects?" Reading these words of James Madison hundreds of years later, I am struck by how prescient James Madison was. when I look at the attempts to roll back Roe v. Wade and with it the right of women to have an abortion, we normally hear people speak in terms of a woman's right to choose. And in rallies, the words, "my body, my rights," are often chanted, only to be countered with people responding with arguments regarding the sanctity of life and questions of when does life begin, replete with pictures of fetuses. Neither side is listening to a word the other speaks. And as a rabbi, I believe that there is another argument that needs to be made, most especially in the Jewish community. As state after state enacts laws to deprive a woman of even being able to make that impossible choice, we are witnessing an assault on the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. I serve as the Mara Da'atra, the religious authority of this congregation. As a result of the efforts to curtail the availability of abortion, to prohibit its practice outright, my First Amendment rights are under attack. I stand before you today as someone who believes that Judaism is neither pro-life nor is Judaism pro-choice. The wisdom of Jewish beliefs about abortion cannot be encapsulated in these weaponized slogans. Judaism embraces both the sanctity of life as well as supporting the necessity of abortion in certain cases. Today, our congregation joins with the National Council of Jewish Women to protest the legal tsunami which seeks to strip Roe v. Wade of its power to grant women the right to choose. We stand with the National Council of Jewish Women on this Shabbat because our rights to practice our religious law is threatened. The establishment clause of the Constitution is under attack, and with it, that which made the Golden of Medina golden. In the portion of Mishpatim that we read this morning, we find the key verse upon which the Jewish view of abortion is based. When men fight, and one of them pushes a pregnant woman, and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according as the woman's husband may exact from him, the payment to be based on a reckoning. Ve'im ason yihiyeh v'natanta nefesh tachat nefesh. But if other damages ensue, then it will be a life for a life. In other words, if men are fighting and a pregnant woman is injured in the melee and has a miscarriage as a result, the husband of the woman may exact a fine from the assailant as to the worth of the fetus. But if the woman dies as a result of her injuries, then it becomes a capital crime, and the guilty party must be punished with the death sentence. Nefesh tachat nefesh, a life for a life. The rabbis understand these ancient verses to mean that the life of the fetus does not carry the same value as the life of the mother. After all, the assailant pays a fine for the death of a fetus, but is put to death if the mother dies. Rabbinic literature extrapolates from this that when the mother's life is threatened during a pregnancy, the fetus is seen as the assailant, and Jewish law requires an abortion to save the life of the mother, even in the third trimester, even while the birth is taking place. In time, the definition of a threat against the mother's life was extended beyond the physical to the psychological, which can be equally painful and also pose a threat to the woman's life. Rape and incest would most certainly be included in that list of permitted abortions. Here it is important to note that phrases like a woman's right to choose, my body, my choices are compelling, powerful, and meaningful, but they are not Jewish categories. Our bodies are recognized as gifts from God, and ultimately our bodies do not belong to us to do as which we please. The focus of Jewish law regarding abortion is on the life and well-being of the mother, both physically and psychologically. So too, for those focused on the sanctity of life from a religious perspective, Judaism most certainly shares that idea, but not in all cases, not when the mother's life is threatened. The Catholic Church may favor the life of the fetus over the mother in abortion cases. They may prohibit abortions of every kind for their constituents to ensure that the religious salvation of the baby's soul be ensured. Evangelicals can focus on when life begins, when there is a heartbeat. They may refuse an abortion after 6 weeks. They may outlaw abortions in the third trimester. They are most certainly allowed to interpret their Christian tradition in any way that they choose. But they have no right. They have no right to impose their religious views, their religious rulings on the Jewish community, on the Muslim community, on the Hindu community, on any other religious group, or any other secular person in this country. It is a breach of the Establishment Clause of the Constitution of the United States of America. The rash of state abortion bans spreading through the United States has captured the nation's attention, but in order to stop this trend, those who are fighting back should also see the path of destruction that goes beyond Roe v. Wade and represents a breach in the wall of separation between church and state. The First Amendment prohibits the government from imposing one set of religious beliefs or religion at all on others. But that is undeniably what this ban is doing. Listen to the words of Governor Kay Ivey after signing Alabama's uncomprising abortion ban on May 15th. This legislation stands as a powerful testament to Alabamians' deeply held belief that every life is precious and that every life is a sacred gift from God. Explaining the ban's rationale, Alabama's Senator Clyde Chambliss asserted, "I believe that if we terminate the life of an unborn child, we are putting ourselves in God's place." In Missouri, Representative Holly Rector expressed her support for that state's abortion ban, which, like Alabama's, lacks a rape or incest exception. quote, to stand on this floor and say, how can someone look at a child of rape or incest and care for them? I can say how we can do that. We can do that with the love of God. Really? Really? Each of these people are welcome to their religious beliefs, but as public officials, they must not be permitted to impose on others beliefs that they do not share. When my relatives first came to this country, when members of your family first walked the streets of America, I am sure that some were surprised that the streets were not paved with gold. But all of them came to the understanding that they and their descendants would enjoy something far more precious, the freedoms of being an American citizen. And for the first time in Jewish history, our relatives were living in a country where their religious rights were protected by a document called the Constitution and the visionary genius of James Madison. These rights are being threatened in the very way that James Madison feared at the time of the founding of this nation. Who does not see that the same authority which can establish Christianity in exclusion of all other religions may establish with the same ease any particular sect of Christians to the exclusion of all other sects? On this Repro Shabbat, I ask you to check the website of the National Council of Jewish Women and get involved in this fight as an American who takes the Constitution of this country seriously, as Jews who appreciate the value of Jewish law and our right to practice it as we see fit in this golden Medina, to fight for the stranger as we see fit, to fight for those who bear the brunt of this legislation, those who live on the margins of our society. It is what our Torah demands. I close with the words of those organizing this effort. Repro Shabbat is an opportunity for congregations, organizations, and communities to celebrate the critical importance of reproductive health access, reproductive rights, and reproductive justice, and to learn more about Judaism's approach to these issues. Reproductive freedom is a Jewish value. Our community should be places where anyone impacted personally by these issues will feel loved and protected. They should be places where people understand what our tradition teaches, and they should be places where we understand the importance of fighting for reproductive health, rights, and justice for everyone. With your help, we will ensure that Anshe Emet continues to be such a place, and America remain the America envisioned in our founding documents. Shabbat Shalom.